I woke in the hospital to the smell of disinfectant and the low beep of monitors somewhere down the corridor. My body ached with a relentless, deepening fever, a sharp reminder of the illness I'd been ignoring for weeks. I tried to sit up and nearly blacked out from the pain and exhaustion radiating through my chest. The nurse had said my temperature was dangerously high and I needed immediate observation, care I couldn't afford. I'd signed myself out against medical advice because the bill was already climbing past $100, and every minute in this bed added more zeros I didn't have. My phone sat on the small rolling table beside me, screen dark. I grabbed it with trembling fingers. 2:47 a.m. My shift at the Ricci mansion started at 6, and I needed to be there. 5 years I'd worked for Lorenzo Ricci, 5 years of steady paychecks that kept me and Chloe in our small apartment. Missing a single day without notice would be grounds for dismissal. I dialed home. Voicemail. Panic clawed at my throat, sharper than the pain. Where was Chloe? Mrs. Moreno? A different nurse appeared in the doorway. Your daughter left about 2 hours ago, said she was going to get some things from home and would be back. Ice flooded my veins. She left? She's 12. You let a 12-year-old leave the hospital alone at midnight? I was already pulling the IV from my arm, ignoring the nurse's protests, ignoring the way the room tilted dangerously when I stood. Chloe had lied to get out of the hospital, which meant she had a plan. Then my brain caught up with my panic, and I realized with horrible clarity where Chloe had gone. She'd gone to work for me. I struggled toward the elevator. I realized with a wave of sickening dread that the only place Chloe knew to go was the mansion, to clean the kitchen. Lorenzo Ricci's mansion sat in an exclusive neighborhood I could never afford to live in. I took 3 buses, each jolt sending fresh agony through my fever-racked body. By the time I reached the service entrance at the back of the property, I was crying from illness and fear. The kitchen lights blazed through the windows. My hand shook when I reached for the door handle, terrified of what I'd find. When it opened from the inside, Anthony, Mr. Ricci's driver, stood there in his dark suit. Mrs. Moreno? Mr. Ricci was about to send you to collect you. Chloe, is she safe? She's safe, inside with Mr. Ricci.
I stumbled past him into the kitchen. I'd cleaned 1,000 times and stopped cold. Chloe sat at the small breakfast table in the corner, wrapped in what looked like one of the expensive throw blankets. Her face was flushed crimson, her eyes glassy and unfocused, shaking violently, far too ill to be moving. She was burning up with fever. And standing beside her, one hand resting lightly on the back of her chair, in a gesture that was both protective and possessive, was Lorenzo Ricci himself. He was looking directly at me with eyes so dark they were almost black. Mrs. Moreno. His voice was quiet, controlled, but something underneath it made my skin prickle with desperate worry. Please sit down before you collapse. I collapsed into the chair across from my daughter, my own fever making the room swim. Chloe, baby, what were you thinking? You couldn't go to work. Her voice was barely a whisper, teeth chattering. You couldn't miss your shift or you'd get fired. So I came instead. I know how to clean the kitchen. You taught me. The words hit like a blow. My 12-year-old, sick with the same fever destroying me, had dragged herself across the city to save my job, to save us. Mrs. Moreno, Lorenzo's voice cut through my panic. Your daughter told me everything. About your debt, about Garrett Vance taking your paychecks, about why you were avoiding medical care for this fever. Shame burned hotter than any fever. I'd kept my private life separate from this world for 5 years, and now my employer, a man whose name people whispered in warnings, knew everything. I'm sorry she bothered you. It won't happen again. I'll make sure. Look at me. It wasn't a request. I forced my head up and saw rage in his dark eyes. Cold, controlled, absolutely lethal rage, but not directed at me. How long would you have continued letting this illness consume you before it killed you, before Chloe watched you die trying to save a job? Each word was precisely measured, dropping between us with terrible weight. I couldn't answer. The truth was too damning. I would have worked until I collapsed on his floor, until there was nothing left. She has the same fever, he continued. When she arrived an hour ago, she made it 3 steps into my kitchen before she collapsed. Anthony caught her.
The room spun violently. Oh, God. Chloe? She's alive, but she won't stay that way if we don't act now. Lorenzo moved to the doorway and spoke quietly. A man in dark clothes entered carrying a medical bag. Not hospital staff. Someone from Lorenzo's world. Dr. Castellano will stabilize Chloe first, then examine you. You're both staying here until this is resolved. I can't afford a private doctor. Did I ask about money? His voice dropped dangerously. Your daughter collapsed in my home trying to save you. That makes this my business. This illness will not claim either of you. Your health is now under my protection. I stared at him, confused. Lorenzo Ricci? A name spoken carefully. A man whose business happened in shadows. And now he was offering to save us? Why would you help us? He watched Dr. Castellano examine Chloe, checking her temperature, pulse, breathing. The doctor's expression grew grimmer. Chloe's eyes fluttered open. Am I in trouble? Lorenzo's expression softened impossibly. He crouched beside her chair. No, Piccola, you're very brave, but foolish. Your mother's job was never worth your life. But Mom needs the money. Garrett takes everything. Your mother needs you alive. Nothing else matters. His conviction filled the kitchen. Dr. Castellano looked up. Temperature 104.3. Severe dehydration. Early pneumonia. She needs IV fluids immediately. Antibiotics. Constant monitoring. If this spikes higher, we're looking at seizures and organ damage. Then she'll have intensive care here, Lorenzo said without hesitation. Set up in the East guest room. Mrs. Moreno takes the adjoining room, both monitored around the clock. If you can't stand people who force the vulnerable to choose between survival and dignity, hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments. Type, "Nobody deserves that," because what happened next only got worse.
Mr. Ricci, I can't impose. You're not imposing, you're accepting reality. He pulled out his phone. Anthony, contact the hospital. Handle Mrs. Moreno's discharge paperwork and billing. Also secure her apartment. Bring personal effects for her and her daughter here. Be thorough. He was reorganizing our lives with phone calls. I was too sick to fight. Lorenzo looked at me with those impossibly dark eyes. 5 years you've worked for me. 5 years of watching you arrive early, leave late, never complaining. I've watched you grow thinner, watched exhaustion deepen, watched you hide bruises from Garrett Vance when you couldn't give him enough money. You knew? He studied me. I've watched you sacrifice everything for 5 years. I know what it's like living where weakness gets you killed. When I saw your child barely conscious on my floor, burning with fever because she loves you that much, something in me decided no one who fights that hard deserves to lose. Not in my home.
Dr. Castellano moved to me, expression growing grimmer with each test. Advanced respiratory infection, severe dehydration, fever of 103.7. You should be in ICU, not riding buses across the city. She'll have what she needs here, Lorenzo said. He looked at me. This is your choice. Accept my help. Let us treat you and Chloe. Let me handle Garrett and your debts. Or refuse and walk out. But understand, if you leave tonight, she won't survive another week of the life you've been living. Neither will you. It wasn't really a choice. Not with Chloe burning with fever, being saved by a stranger's mercy. Okay, I whispered. Please help us. Something shifted in Lorenzo's expression. Relief, maybe. Dr. Castellano, begin treatment. Anthony, updates every 2 hours on their conditions. The doctor inserted my IV. Cool fluid felt like salvation. Broad-spectrum antibiotics for both. You'll feel worse before better. But fevers should break within 48 hours if we caught this in time. If we caught this in time. The words hung like a threat. Anthony will show you to your rooms once you're stabilized. Rest. We'll discuss everything else when you're stronger. Mr. Ricci, thank you. He paused at the doorway. Don't thank me yet. You don't know what you've agreed to. The next 36 hours blurred together in fevered dreams and medical monitoring. I was vaguely aware of nurses checking vitals, Dr. Castellano adjusting medications, cool cloths on my forehead. But mostly, I drifted in that strange space between sleep and consciousness where time meant nothing and everything hurt. When I finally surfaced fully, sunlight streamed through windows I didn't recognize. My fever had broken. I felt weak but clear-headed for the first time in weeks. A nurse I didn't recognize sat in the corner. Mrs. Moreno, good morning. How do you feel? Better. Where's Chloe? Next door, still sleeping. Her fever broke around 4 this morning. Dr. Castellano says she's stabilized beautifully. Relief overwhelmed me. We were going to be okay. Anthony knocked, entering with shopping bags from stores I'd never afforded. Mr. Ricci asked me to bring these. I've collected your belongings from your apartment, but he thought you might prefer some new things. The clothes weren't my usual worn finds. These were new, quality fabric, perfectly sized, comfortable elegance I'd only touched doing others' laundry. This is too much. Mr. Ricci was quite specific. He'll explain everything. He's asked to see you when you're ready. An hour later, showered and dressed in clothes that actually fit, I stood outside Lorenzo's study. He looked up from his desk. Mrs. Moreno, come in. You look steadier. I feel human. Chloe? Still sleeping peacefully. She'll make a complete recovery, as will you. He slid a folder across his desk. We need to discuss your future. You don't have your old job anymore. You have a different arrangement, a contract. You'll continue managing my household with appropriate compensation, health insurance for both of you, housing on property, 3 bedrooms, Chloe's education fully funded through university, and salary 10 times what you made before. I stared at the numbers, unable to process. I don't understand. Why? If you believe everyone deserves healthcare without choosing between medicine and survival, hit that subscribe button. People like Garrett won't. And you need to hear what Lorenzo did about it.
Lorenzo leaned back, studying me. I've been watching you for 5 years. Your dedication, your exhaustion you tried hiding, the way you flinched at unexpected noises, always waiting for something bad. I suspected your illness was worse than you admitted, but I respected your privacy. I thought you had support. I was wrong. You were completely alone, drowning slowly. He moved to the window. Last night, seeing a 12-year-old that sick trying to save her mother by taking on adult responsibilities she should never consider, something decided enough was enough. You're not just the maid anymore, not invisible. You're under my protection now, permanently. And people I protect completely. The weight settled over me. Protection from Lorenzo Ricci wasn't just safety, it was possession, belonging to his world in ways that couldn't be undone. 5 years ago, when I hired you, you reminded me of someone I'd lost, someone who worked themselves to death trying to protect people they loved, who believed asking for help was weakness. I watched you making the same mistakes, walking the same path. I told myself I'd intervene if it got too dangerous. Last night, it got too dangerous. His eyes held something unreadable. You stopped being just the maid the moment your daughter collapsed at 2 a.m. trying to save you. That changed everything, for both of us. I looked at the contract again, seeing not just numbers, but a complete restructuring of our lives. Security, safety, a future that didn't involve choosing between medicine and rent. What about... I hesitated. What about Garrett?
Lorenzo's expression turned cold. Garrett Vance will not be a problem. You don't know him. He's unpredictable, violent. He always finds us. And I am neither unpredictable nor violent without cause. His voice carried absolute certainty. Your apartment is under surveillance. The building manager knows Garrett isn't permitted entry. If he attempts to reach you or Chloe, he'll deal with people far less patient than I am. He turned his laptop toward me. Security footage showed our old building, Garrett pounding on our door. Then men in suits appearing, having a brief conversation. Garrett leaving quickly, his swagger replaced with fear. That was yesterday. He's been made aware you're both under protection he cannot challenge. He was given a clear choice: disappear from your lives permanently, or face consequences worse than any debt he claims you owe. He understood the message. I watched Garrett retreat and felt something I hadn't in years. Real relief. Maybe we could actually be free. He took everything from us, every paycheck, every bit of savings, kept us in debt deliberately so I could never leave. Then consider it returned. Your debts are cleared. All of them. I've paid off every collection agency,
every predatory lender, everyone Garrett convinced to loan you money at impossible rates. Your credit is repaired. Your accounts are secure, in your name only, with protections he cannot breach. He has no leverage anymore. You're free of him in every way that matters. The words felt impossible. After years of drowning in debt I didn't create. You're safe here. Chloe is safe. That's not negotiable.
2 weeks passed in rest and recovery. Chloe and I stayed in beautiful West Wing rooms, rebuilding strength under Dr. Castellano's supervision. Staff treated us differently now, as permanent fixtures in Lorenzo's household. Chloe thrived. Color returned to her cheeks. She laughed again, a sound absent for so long I'd forgotten what joy looked like on her face. Anthony's daughter visited most afternoons, and they'd spend hours in the gardens playing normal 12-year-old games. One evening, I found Lorenzo watching the two girls chase each other through flower beds. "She's happy," I said quietly. I'd forgotten what that looked like. She's alive. That's what matters. Everything else, happiness, healing, normal childhood, those are bonuses. But fundamentally, she's alive and safe with a future that doesn't involve watching her mother die from preventable illness. I was dying. I couldn't see I was drowning us both. If Chloe hadn't forced your intervention, then I would have lost both of you. That would have been unacceptable. I looked at him, seeing past the dangerous reputation. You care. You actually care what happens to us. My mother worked herself to death trying to provide for me. She refused help, believed asking was weakness. I watched her fade, powerless to stop it, because I was too young to understand what was happening. When I saw you making her same mistakes, saw Chloe trying desperately to save you the way I couldn't save her, I couldn't let history repeat. Not when I finally had power to stop it. Comment: health over everything if you're Team Isabelle. Suffering in silence can't win. Now watch what happened when she finally accepted help.
3 weeks after that fever-soaked night, Lorenzo called me to his study again. "Garrett tried accessing your apartment yesterday. He's been dealt with. He won't bother you again." His tone was matter-of-fact. I didn't ask what "dealt with" meant. "Your debt is cleared completely. I've set up accounts for you and Chloe. Your contract is permanent if you want it. You're free to leave, but you'd walk away from security most people never find." I looked at this man who'd saved us, who'd seen my daughter collapse and decided we were worth protecting, who'd given us back our lives. "I'm not leaving. Chloe and I belong here now." Satisfaction flickered in his dark eyes. "Good, because I wasn't going to let you leave anyway." The truth settled between us. This wasn't just employment. This was protection, possession, and something deeper neither of us could name yet. "You saved our lives." "No. Chloe saved both of you when she collapsed in my kitchen at 2 a.m. She forced me to see what I'd been ignoring, that some people are worth breaking rules for." He moved closer. "You're not invisible anymore. You never will be again." I nodded, feeling hope for the first time in years. We were safe. Chloe was thriving. I was exactly where I belonged, no longer invisible, no longer alone, under protection of a man dangerous enough to keep us safe from everything, including ourselves. The fever that nearly killed us delivered us into a life I never dreamed possible. Sometimes salvation comes from unexpected places, wrapped in darkness but offering light. And sometimes, the most dangerous man in the room is exactly the one you need to survive. If you watched up to this point, comment the country you're watching this from. Represent your country.